Yeah. Okay.
Great. Okay. Got it. There we go. Well, thanks for meeting with me, Nick. It's great to have a chance to chat with you and
Yeah,
to,
yeah. So
yeah,
it's so excited to talk to you, and I love all the paintings behind you.
thank you. Yeah. I mean, I've done CVP 3 times now.
Wow.
So the first time was 2019, and then I did it again in 2020, which was just the weirdest year. And then again in 2021. So yeah, I've done it 3 times. But yeah, this week I've had so many people in my Facebook group, like just like responding to, like, I was like, oh, the first time I heard Nick describe color this way, it was like a light went off, and everybody was like, yes, yes, me too. So yeah, so it's been really a great week, like chatting with people and for them to get your teaching. It's really exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why we do the free workshop, but it really helps. Like you're an alumni and helping people understand, what it is or what, helping answer questions. So maybe maybe we could just hit some common questions that you're seeing people asking, and maybe, or
Yeah.
what would be most helpful for me to share with people, that would help them get some clarity around whether this is
Yeah.
a good fit or not.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people have been wondering how you do this with encaustic, because my group is all things encaustic.
Oh,
So, we're painting with hot wax and it's not the same as acrylic at all. But what I've done is I've kind of modified my practice. And so what happened was right in 2019, when I first signed up for CVP, I was taking a course the first 2 weeks. I was with Jeffrey Hurst and with Paula Rowland, and it was screen printing on encaustic monotypes. And so I was getting a little behind, and I was a little worried about starting CVP when I was already on another course, but it worked out fine because everything was recorded. It was fine. Um, but what I learned from Jeff at that course was that you could pigment encaustic gesso with Cama aqua dispersion, these highly pigmented dyes. So I can take RNF white encaustic gesso, put a few drops of color into it, and mix a color. And then
wow.
I can paint with, so I'm painting with, it's like chalk paint.
Yeah.
It's paint. So I'm painting with encaustic gesso when I'm doing my CVP playboards. I was using encaustic gesso.
And
So
is the gesso, then you heat it up with a heat gun?
no, so I'm doing it with the encaustic gesso. So all it is it's gesso that doesn't have as much acrylic in it. It's
Ah,
got it's got like a chalk, more chalk in it. So
okay.
it's more receptive then to receive the encaustic hot wax, because acrylic is
Oh.
too plasticky and can cause adhesion problems.
What is that
So
called? That gesso? So it's encaustic gesso,
yeah, it's by RNF.
and you can
So
make it any color. So it's like you're normally painting, but then
yeah,
you can go back over with encaustic.
yeah. So and
Wow.
actually, RNF now says that you can put fluid acrylic in to pigment your encaustic gesso. So that makes the gesso, I can work just like I would with acrylic. Like I've got my cafeteria trays with the blue paper, and I'm
Wow.
and I'm and I'm painting with brushes and very gesturally and creating all these marks and doing, so I'm creating underpaintings.
Ah, I
And
see.
then when I've got, the composition and all these cool marks there, I can then come in with hot wax, and I don't have to worry that it's going to be a problem with the wax adhering. And
Man,
so
that's so good. I'm so glad we're talking because I was just on a call and there were some people in the chat talking about encaustic and how it would be kind of hard, to be learning this, but this is so great. So that's
And
a great way to
collage, all
work.
of that you can combine and create all kinds of cool underpaintings like on the substrates, and then add wax.
Wow.
And then, so
Wow.
you could just add clear wax and heat it up and say that now it's an encaustic painting. But I tend to use, pigmented wax and things that work with encaustic, and I add
Wow.
that on the top.
Amazing.
So, yeah, so it was just interesting that right when I was starting CVP and I was like, how am I going to make this work with my practice? Then I learned how to pigment the encaustic gesso. And I just had a lot of fun creating these play boards and
Wow.
doing the underpainting. And so actually last month I went to an open studio at a local art center, because my art studio is in my home and I love it, but I have low ceilings. Like, it's in my basement. And I've got this great setup. I've got great ventilation, great lighting, everything where I want it, but I want to lift the ceiling. um,
Yeah.
so I find it's more constraining having those low ceilings. And I thought, okay, I wonder if I went to an open studio and took my encaustic gesso and everything I needed to do my underpaintings, could I work larger in this beautiful space with big windows and high ceilings? And it was fabulous. So it was great too, because it got me out of the house and out with other artists. But everybody else is painting so carefully with little brushes, and I'm just wild, I'm throwing paint around. I've got my paper towels, I'm rolling, I'm scraping, I'm doing all of these things. I'm like, oh wow, I'm painting the way I learned from Nick, and I'm very free and I'm playing.
Oh,
And
so
everybody
good.
else is looking at me like, what are you doing? Like,
Wow. That
wow.
is so great. What a
And
great
I
outcome.
was having lots of fun
Yeah.
playing, and I realized how much this CVP has influenced the
Yeah.
way I start a painting.
Yeah. And this is
Yeah.
something, as I'm really teaching this, when we play and experiment and play, and we don't have to have an outcome in mind when we start. We can postpone that so you have some time to just get in motion and play and have fun, because that's when all the cool things come up.
Hmm.
And that's a really, that's one of the fundamental ways. I try to do that whenever I'm painting, always in the early stages. It's so much fun.
Yeah. So I think that have, so a few people have been asking me, what did you learn from CVP? Like, how did CVP help your practice? And I think that it did help me to be freer, and just start with playing and
Mm,
realize
right.
that every mark I didn't have to worry too much. And one
Yeah.
nice thing about encaustic, so actually this is huge, is when I create an underpainting, as long as I get it so that I'm like, okay, that's got a good composition, the value contrast is good, then when I come in with wax, I can always scrape back and get back to my underpainting.
Oh,
So
right.
if I do a whole lot of stuff and I'm like, oh, I've wrecked it, I overworked it, I got too fiddly, it's a mess, I could just heat it up and scrape it off, and I'm right
Yeah, so
back to the
you're
start.
sorting out, which is one of the principles we teach. You're sorting out the loud and quiet, the big kind of loud conversation. And if you got that working, then you can bring in all those refinements, which is when the encaustic comes in. That's
Hmm.
really something.
Yeah.
Love
So
that. And
one
you can
thing I
break
love,
back down.
yeah, and one thing I'm loving about adding the encaustic is because you can see the marks that I've made below the layers of wax, and then I can add some marks on the top that kind of aren't
Wow.
like, I can go very precisely covering the same mark, or I can just have it off and it's like, oh, it's an echo of the mark. Yeah, so it's been really fun.
Ruth, I would love if you could send me a few samples that if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to share this maybe with, because we get encaustic artists that they want to come in the program, but they don't know if it would relate. And it's like the fact that
Hmm.
you're actually integrating all the things you're learning into this encaustic process. I'd love to just, if you just send me
Yeah,
2 or 3 images of
sure.
yours that you did that, I just would
Yeah.
love to see that.
So I run a blog called allthingsencaustic.com,
Uh-huh.
and there's a tag on it. So if you go allthingsencaustic.com/tag/ Art2Life, there's
Okay.
all the posts I've written about Art2Life and how
Oh, wow.
things have
Okay.
affected my process. And so I'll send you that link. And on the last post I wrote, there is a photo actually of this painting before the wax and then after the wax.
Wow, great.
And
This will be so
yeah,
helpful. Yeah.
so yeah, it's been really interesting to see how CVP also gave me some um, courage to step
Mhm.
out. So I've had 2 solo shows
Wow.
since I did CVP.
Congratulations.
So the first solo show I had it was supposed to be during COVID and then it got shifted. So but I had one wall that was all 12 by 12s, and they were all play boards that I had then finished. And they were photo encaustic. So a lot of people are wondering, how do you do photo encaustic with CVP principles? So I had found a photo album of my partner's grandmother's photos. So that was World War I era photos. And I
Wow.
took those photos, I printed them on Sumi rice paper through my laser printer.
Uh-huh.
It's like magic, Nick. Like you take it and you lay the photo and you're looking at it with this abstract background of marks, and you turn the board and then you're like, oh wow, look how the photo just fits with that image without doing too much more. And then I would put a layer or two of wax on, and then I take my ski iron and I iron the paper into the wax, and it just would, like, the photo would just become part of the painting.
Wow.
And it was
Wow.
just like magic. Yeah.
Wow.
So
So
that
cool.
was really, really cool. And it was really fun that I was taking all of these paintings that I did during CVP and taking them and finalizing them. And
Wow.
then they formed the start of what became my solo show. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or anything that you think would be helpful for people that you're getting a lot of, like, besides the encaustic thing? Is that mostly what it is, that, you seem to have figured it out. I mean, you have more information about using encaustic in CVP than I do. So I love this conversation.
Yeah, so people were asking me, about the encaustic piece, and they were asking me about, my experience because, as somebody who's been through it, um, I think one huge thing for people is just understanding that they can do it more than once, because
Yeah.
it's so heavily discounted for the alumni to come back. And
Yeah.
that's such a great gift, because
Yeah.
like there is way too much content to take in the
Yeah.
first time around. And
Yeah.
like even like rewatching your free workshop, it was like, oh yeah, okay.
Right. Right. Right.
get
Right.
that get
Right.
that back, into
Yeah.
my mind again. Yeah, I've got to
Yeah,
remember
it's
that.
it's a
So,
it's we could call it, like, now I call it like a continuity program. I mean, it's people just they keep coming
mhm,
back, and I keep making new stuff, so it's really worth it for people to,
mhm.
but yeah, it's plenty deep, and because
Yeah,
you've changed, right? You're different
yeah.
when you come back, so the content, you're going to learn different aspects of it.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that was really good for me too was after going through CVP the first time, then a group of people kind of formed in the Facebook group and said, "Who wants to do it again?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so like there were people, like, we were from all over. We weren't all encaustic artists. I was the only one doing the encaustic, but it was like having some accountability
Yeah, no,
because
absolutely.
you're going
Yeah.
to go, yes, I'm going to do it again. But there isn't the call coming out. And it's like, oh, but if you've got a call with a group of other artists and you're like, okay, we're doing a Zoom, I've got to watch the lesson again and be,
Yeah.
I've got to get in the studio, I've got to do some work. So that was really
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
You've just
absolutely.
built such a great community. And I
Yeah.
think that that's really important.
Okay, well,
Um,
I'm glad you're saying that because I haven't really, you know, I haven't really talked about that. And it is so true. They get to go again, if they want,
yeah.
because,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I've got to shoot off here pretty quick,
Yeah,
but
for
I just want
sure.
to, it was so great to talk to you. Is there anything
Great.
else that you can think of that would be helpful for you or those who are following you or around?
Nothing is jumping out for me
Okay.
of anything else to ask you about because I've done it 3 times, so I have the answers, but it's kind of
Yeah.
like cool for my followers in my Facebook group to be able to hear us chatting together
Yeah, and it's
about it.
you're the poster child for CVP, right? You not only learned a thing and then you've returned and you can continue to improve, but now you're helping other people, which is kind of
Hmm.
amazing. Like you teaching's a part of your thing and art's just moved more and more to the center of your life. And this is, not everyone wants to do that necessarily, but it's really
Hmm.
cool that it makes it available,
Yeah.
so I'm super stoked for you. It's really great. And your work, it's
Yeah.
looking really good back there. So
Great. Thank you.
yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Nick. It was great to chat with you.
Yeah. And congratulations. I mean, I just we're having an artist party tomorrow, the artist party.
Oh,
And
right. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just like there's so many people like yourself that we just want to highlight, because they're the ones that are showing what's possible. You're showing what's possible, especially with encaustic. I mean, that's amazing. I love this. I've done encaustic, but I never knew about this encaustic gesso. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, thanks so much. And
Thank you.
I will talk to you soon. And I'll have someone on my team reach out so you can get the recording so you can share this.
Sounds great.
All
Thanks.
right. Thanks so
Okay.
much. Okay,
Bye,
bye.
Nick.